Hooray, we're live. We're going to do something super dangerous today, and that is putting my screen behind me, and I'm going to try to look at the camera the whole time. And today's topic is going to be going over everything that I personally took away from John Petrucci's Guitar Universe camp, which happened August, I think, 3rd through 6th. My life has been a big blur since then. But before we get into all of that, excuse me, I need to issue a sort of correction on some of my instruction with regard to pick holding. I did a lesson with my teacher Alex yesterday. Alex Campbell is awesome, so grateful. And I asked him, should I keep my picking hand, is it okay if I bend my thumb like that, or should I keep it straight? And in the video, if you haven't watched it, we discussed keeping the thumb not bent like this because it requires this additional engagement right here. And he said to keep the thumb straight. And the reason he said that is so that you can keep 1, 2, 3, all of these joints on the same axis, on the same plane. And the end result of that is that the pick angle, instead of being like, kind of 45-degree angle back and forth on the guitar string, instead of it being that way, it ends up being, or he said 22.5 degrees, so half of 45 degrees. And what it really results in is a lot more articulate pick attack. It almost feels like it takes a little bit more to get through the string, which is pretty interesting. And I'm working on practicing that and getting used to that. So if you see that in my playing in the future, that's what's going on. I highly recommend you give it a try. And the other thing that we talked about is the use of a strap and guitar position. And what he told me is he said, if I learn to play something on my right leg as I have it right now, then I can always definitely play it on my left leg. And, we just talked about playing in a convincing manner, and this really isn't the guitar for it. I tried it on my distortion patch and it really didn't sound good, so I don't want to show you guys. But the pick attack is so much heavier. And I've got a bunch of delay and stuff on. I don't feel like changing it, but looks like we got some people here, so that's good. So that's the correction. Oh yeah, so right leg, no strap, and then you can adjust height by just using a footstool, and use the footstool on your right leg. You don't have to use the footstool on your left leg. So I ordered one. I would say if you get one, just get one that's adjustable. They're kind of a dime a dozen. So you will just try it out, see if it works for you. So with that out of the way, here's my notepad that I used during camp, and we'll just go through notes top to bottom. Some of the instructors that were there were Pliny and Aaron Marshall of Intervals, who I spent a lot of time with. Super cool guys. Awesome class. Thank you guys so much. I also spent a little bit of time. JP did masterclasses, of course, John Petrucci himself, and those were really big. I'm going to have a whole video on kind of everything I learned there, and I'll explain a little bit here about what's going on, and maybe we can demo it with the Axe Effects stuff, because I demoed it last night, and it was interesting. So let me see who else, whose classes I attended. I met Ola England. Thanks for the YouTube tips. And yeah, I spent a lot of time with Aaron and Pliny. And let's see who else we got here. That's more JP stuff. And yeah, that was it. I spent a lot of time with Aaron and them. So it's all good stuff. So let's hop into it. No questions. We got a couple people here, but I'm just going to go through my notes top to bottom. Basically, the camp, would I recommend the camp? What were my thoughts? I thought the camp was awesome. John Petrucci's masterclasses were incredible. It was so cool to just meet everybody. Frankly, that whole week, I really didn't play a lot. There's so many people at the camp, and they do a really great job with getting gear. I was very pleased with all the Boss Katana stuff that I played on. But a lot of the younger guys who were there were really eager to get on the gear and stuff, and so I just tend not to be super assertive about like, oh, hey, let me play, and, like getting first in line and stuff. So I really didn't end up playing a lot. And I'd say if you go to the event, there's a lot of people there, and I would look at it more like a networking event than like I'm going to get a lot of one-on-one help and teaching. It's really, the way John says it is, we're all here because we love guitar, and that's really what it is. You're going to get to see some awesome shows and hang out and network. And and I would say also, if you go, it's really going to help you out significantly if you bring a 6-string guitar in standard tuning. You could bring a 7, because the thing is when you're going out and you're just jamming with other players, that's what most people are going to have. And so if you come in and you're like, oh yeah, I'm in new standard, which is all perfect fifths, or I'm in drop D on a floating bridge, or I'm in, a whole half step down, it's just going to be really hard for you to kind of collaborate and enjoy the camp experience as much, which, like I've thought about switching to like new standard type tuning or something like that. But the thing is like all the solos, all the music, it's just how guitar has been done for so long that it, you can switch those things, and yeah, they do have legitimate benefits, but it can make it harder to collaborate with other players or learn rep. So let's hop into my notes, see if there's any little questions, comments. Cool. First class I went to was Jason Richardson, and the thing that he explained was, I'm going to switch patches here real quick. Let's just turn off the delays here. The thing that Jason Richardson went over was using individual fingers to sweep, and he has a video on it on YouTube. And personally, I don't sweep that way. I kind of knew that was what he's going to teach, but so an example would be, instead of which is barring with the third finger and the first finger, then you would do something like, and I was like, yeah, you can learn it that way. Yeah, it's maybe probably a little bit more clear, but again, it's like, comes back to like the 6-string and standard guitar thing. It's like people have been doing barred sweeps forever, and it sounds great. And if you want to sound like Jason, do the sweeps like Jason. If that makes sense to you, go for it. There's probably other people, if you've seen my sweeping video, who don't do the particular sweep picking pattern that I use, and that's totally fine. Whatever works for you. But what I will share is a little trick that'll help you out a lot with your sweeps, and that is, if you look at the length of the last joint of your third finger, it's, at least for me on my hand, it's about as long as I can probably cover 3 strings with it, maybe 4. And so what happens when people go to do, I'm going to do a 6-string E major sweep at 12th fret, so. Now what happens when people go to do that is they will, and then they'll place the tip of their third finger right on the B, and then when they collapse their finger down, now they're covering that A right there, so B, E, and A, or 14, 14, 14 if you're on tabs. And when you do that, yeah, you're going to run into a clarity issue where the G sharp doesn't speak like you want it to. So an easy way to do that, or fix that, is, and instead of placing the tip of your third finger right there on the B, you can kind of place, just place your finger on F sharp and then collapse it down. And what that'll do is, now the extra length on your ring finger is now covering the F sharp, and it's covering the B and the E, but you've got total space for that G sharp string. So experiment with where exactly you're placing your fingers when you actually go through your sweeps, and that's something that can maybe open up a little bit of clarity for you. Cool. No comments, questions, concerns? All right, cool. Pliny and Aaron stuff was super cool. They went through a lot of like music business and kind of music production kind of stuff, which was super helpful. So Aaron said, learn to move stuff in the DAW. They both said, it's like whether you're using Reaper or Pro Tools or Logic, or FL Studio, or, just don't use GarageBand. GarageBand's really going to limit you. That's kind of a consensus from everybody. Personally, I use Reaper. I'm really super happy with Reaper. There's a great community around it. It's super cheap. And just learn to move stuff around in the DAW, because the whole thing is, if you have an idea in your head or a sound in your head and it takes you, 2 hours to get it down instead of 30 minutes or even 10 minutes, that's going to make a big difference for you. Aaron, somebody asked a question about, like collaborating with people. I was actually talking with my teacher yesterday, and he specifically said, don't do Craigslist. Nothing on there is worth your time. So don't do Craigslist. And he said also don't bother with Instagram. In-person networking and going to specifically worthwhile jams is going to be your best bet. Now, Aaron talked about a tool called Listen To by Audio Movers, which you might have heard of if you listen to a lot of like musician podcasts like me. And what that does is it allows musicians to collaborate through Zoom, and the audio pipeline that facilitates is really super high quality. Let's see what we got here. Duplicate song and rewrite song over it. I don't remember what that was for. I asked a question about, like how much time do you guys sit there spending on like drum velocity and, programming MIDI and all that? And they said a ton of time. So if you're just starting to play with MIDI tools and things, like, get the initial sounds down. For me, like, I just like getting the initial sound down, and then I'll go back and I'll play with all the velocities and all that and the timing. Aaron mentions that there's some really good tools for pitch and velocity. I use Superior Drummer 3 for my drums, and I use Omnisphere, whatever is the latest version. I've got Omnisphere. And they've got a lot of really great tools for adjusting audio and humanizing it. So definitely learn those. Aaron gave a specific value for ghost notes on drums, which was 45 to 55. And the note I'll add to that is if you are, so let's say you're using Superior Drummer. The thing is if you're using Get Good drums and you're using one kit, or you're using Superior Drummer and there's a gazillion kits in Superior Drummer, all of the kits are going to respond a little bit differently in terms of velocity. So just because I'm telling you 45 to 55 here, that's a starting place. So listen to the kit and see how it sounds. Somebody asked a question about improvising on odd meters, and Pliny explained in one of their classes they would put on like a backing track in, say, 5/4, 7/4, whatever, and just start on different places of the beat. So let's just say it's tempo's this, so 2 3 4 5 1 2 3, 1 3 4 5. And I thought that was a really cool exercise, and something you'll notice if you listen to jazz a lot, pretty much none of the solos like start on beat 1. So definitely when you're listening through all that, then play with where you're coming in. The next thing that was really cool, and you might have heard of it before, it might sound obvious, but it was great for me to hear from these guys, which was to use mnemonic devices for polyrhythms, like one for 3/2 I know is nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea. And if I was to tap that out on my knees here, it'd be like, so 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea. So that's a great way to do that, and you can make up your own things. Aaron had some really funny things that were not politically correct. I'm not going to repeat them, and frankly, I don't really remember them. But yeah, they were kind of funny, so that was fun. Let's see what else I wrote here. Aaron said, if I show you the notes without the context, cool, pretty, but what does it mean? And he said, chords give you context. So, if I play an A major chord, versus, and let's say A is the melody note. If I play B major 7, what's another? I could do, G add 9. You could do like a whole thing on that. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, think about your chords and what your melody notes are. I'm gonna have a lesson coming up soon on how to match any like how to figure out what notes to play with what chord. That was a really big question I saw at camp a lot, and I think people really get easily overwhelmed when it comes to like what's Mixolydian mode versus like double harmonic minor and super Locrian and all that. And it's like, I mean, I literally asked Guthrie himself. I said, you do all this jazz kind of stuff. How do you like memorize and think through all these modes? And his response was so simple. It was awesome. He just said, well, I just do it by sound nowadays. And I really want to point something out on that response, which is nowadays. That's the key word. He didn't say, oh, I just started and learned it by ear or whatever, because I think it's really important. And this was a question. It comes up in every musical environment I've ever been in all my life, where people are like, oh, should I learn theory? Or like, are you theory like kills your soul, man? And it's like, it's not like that. I explained it like this. I said, there's a mountain peak. The mountain peak is playing music at whatever expert degree that you want to. And you can hike up the east side of the mountain, or you can hike up the west side of the mountain. And both those trails are, 14 miles long. Maybe one's 12 miles. Maybe, this one has a little more elevation gain. Maybe this one is a little steeper, but it's a shorter trail. And the thing is you're going to have to learn like how to play guitar, and then you're going to learn music theory to get to the peak, or you're going to learn music theory, and then you're going to learn how to play guitar more, and it's going to help you realize those things. For me, I started on guitar in freaking 2018, but I had been doing classical music training of sorts since 2006. I started on string bass, and then I had music theory classes, I think my senior year of high school, which were just formative. It's like, oh, this is an A major. That's an inversion. And, here's another inversion. And what's our next inversion? And those things were really helpful for me. And, even nowadays when I'm going through and I'm programming, MIDI choir and, synths and all that, I'm thinking through, rules of like classical harmony. And, sometimes I actively choose to ignore them because frankly, the choirs and synths and everything are like super buried. Like, just as a quick nerdy example for anybody who's been exposed to this stuff at all, one of the things you'd want to avoid is called parallel fifths. So notes moving in harmony like that. But the thing is, we kind of do that all the time in rock and roll because we're we're playing our power chords or whatever. So, having the knowledge is really great. I encourage you to get it one way or another. All right, next up, more notes from JPGU. By the way, if you have any questions, you can always post them in the chat. Love getting questions from you guys. It's really fun. All right. Plenty said, just rip off your favorite bands. I mean, be inspired by. And when I was in like the Tim Henson and Scott LePage class, and they were breaking down their songs and stuff, they showed like, oh yeah, we listened to this, hip hop song or whatever, and this chord progression, we just ripped that. And so it's like, make your own version of anything. And another comment that really like stuck out to me from the camp was from Jason Richardson, and this guy came into his class and was like, yeah, I'm trying to be, Jason asked the student, he said, well, who are your influences? And the student said, well, I don't listen to music because I'm trying to be as original as possible. And it kind of makes sense, but it's also kind of an absurd statement because, yeah, I mean, we're all just building off of everybody else's sounds. We want to find our own path, but yeah. All right, next up, I made this little chart here. You can't see it, but basically it was kind of on song structure, and it was a really cool way to think about things. So when Pliny was explaining, I believe, Electric Sunrise and kind of like how he wrote that, the way he broke it down is he said there's like a 4/4 and then there's a 7/8, and I forget what the type of diagram is called, but a little box, right, where all these things intersect. And so there's clean and distortion, and so you just match up the boxes, right? So you're going through this song idea, and you've got 4/4 clean, and then you've got 7/8 clean, and then you've got 4/4 distortion, 7/8 distortion. It's like, dude, bam, there's 4 sections right there. So how can you take the same idea and, just flip it around and, make it a clean section? Like, I was thinking about that in one of my little demo kind of songs that I was doing. I was like, yeah, all the sounds are cool, but it just feels like it's just, at 90% the whole time. There's no contrast, there's no dynamics. And so it's kind of boring to listen to. And I don't, I have a version exported with that section and a version without that section. And I always find myself going and listening to the version without that section because it gets to the little quiet, soft piano part much faster. Cool. Now we're on to JP masterclass notes. No questions still, so let's see. My face is really bright. Sorry about that. First time with this setup, and you know how webcams are. I'm going to knock the light down just a smidge and see if that helps us. It is as dark as like a fine restaurant in here, but it doesn't look that way to you guys, which is fun. So let's get back to it. So JP masterclass. The first thing that he talked about is he said how I see the sound, and this is really great. For me, I've kind of had a sound image for a long time. And when I think about my sound, I think about, like, if you've ever seen or heard a tree fall, which I saw a tree fall at my parents' house, like out of a window when I was in high school, and it's just this like very loud cracking sound, and it's crazy to see this massive thing like just fall over. I mean, like the wooden deck got like pried up. It was wild. So I think about that sound, and I think about like clashing metal. Like, I like just a really aggressive sound, and the amp model that's kind of brought me to these days in the fractal stuff. I started with, for my rhythm sound, a Friedman HBE V1 Fat. And actually, I'm going to switch guitars real quick so you guys can hear this. And I've kind of been, my Purple Majesty has Sonic Ecstasy pickups, and then my Silver Majesty, my 7-string, has the Dreamcatcher Rainmaker, and they do sound a little bit different. I think I'm going to grab the purple one right now, and I'm just going to kind of tour you through a couple of my sounds that I used for a little bit. Just give me just a second. We'll get this out. All right. Cool. And then this guitar is a bit louder on output. So let me drop that. Weird. Okay. And let's go M-Rocks. I call my sound M-Rocks. Cool. So that was kind of the first iteration of my sound. And let's pop on to, I made a sound called M-Rocks 4. And this one is a whole lot more bassy. Let's see. It got based on a different amp. But what's nice about this one is, and John Petrucci himself said this word, he said, it's got the gank. Just that like choking, heavy palm music. And with this one, it just feels a little kind of muffled, like it's like putting an egg carton in front of somebody's mouth. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. So I didn't use this one for very long. We moved on to MROX 5. I used this one for a while, and this one got based on, this is my first sound on the Rev generator. And then I did some additional tweaking last night, and I'm going to talk about some signal flow stuff here in a minute, because there's a lot of that on the notes, but I want to show you kind of what I've got dialed in now. I know it's kind of hard to hold all these sounds in your ear, but I think we're on this one. There's a lot of really aggressive high-end stuff in there. It almost, frankly to me, I'm playing out of this head rush unit nowadays, it almost sounds like way too sharp. But big lesson I learned from my teacher yesterday, he said, you know, when it comes to guitar tone, nothing below 150 hertz belongs and nothing above 10,000. And so the last step in this patch is just a filter that cuts pretty much everything below 150, and you have to be careful because right around that range is where you start getting a little bit of that like bump in the sound, and kind of that bassy hit kind of stuff. And then with the 10,000, when I took that down, I was actually really surprised because it actually sounded brighter to me for some reason. So that's kind of the iteration of my sounds, but JP's sounds. Get back to chat here. But JP described his sound. He said, like, I want to be like on a mountaintop, and this is his solo sound. And like, you know, I play, and like, there's all these birds around me, and like every note that I play is like a bird, and you know, there's the delays, like all of those are little notes flying away, and it was really cool how he went through and explained it. And I'll make some notes on the JP delays. He said for the studio stuff, he will set up a specific time delay. If you're not familiar, JP frequently uses a quarter note delay and then also a dotted quarter note delay. And that's kind of the setup I have on this latest patch for the solo sound. We'll go to that real quick, because why not? Boop. So this is, yeah, just listen to. So it's got that ping pong effect. I'll play it 2 more times. Do, 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 do. So my sound is definitely pretty darn similar to John Petrucci's, for better or worse, but it's also, I think, a lot edgier. And when you're dialing in your own sounds, I highly, highly recommend that you guys go and start from scratch. I would recommend against like buying a plugin, or if you do buy a plugin, then tweak it. Don't just use it out of the box, because one of the things I think we're kind of losing with all these plugins and presets and everything is, you know, people sound like the presets that they're playing from instead of sounding like themselves. And for me, I want to sound like myself, right? And that's also going to come down to the stuff that you play. All right. So the sound is an image. And JP, there's 3 sounds. He explained that he's got a clean sound, a crunch sound, which is, he said you're on that sound 80% of the time. That's the rhythm guitar sound. And then there's the solo sound. And for me, the JP2C, which is John Petrucci's amp model, it has 3 channels. Most amp models, I think, only have 2 channels on them. I've literally never owned a physical amp, so sorry. But yeah, his has 3, and you can set it up that way. It's very cool. It's a very well designed amp. Yeah. Next up, he said there's no reverb, there's no compressor. By the way, you really don't need a compressor on metal sounds because the gain is so high that it often kind of evens it out anyways. And specifically, there's no noise gate on the crunch. Personally, I do use a gate, but maybe I'll experiment without it. I think the response that you get out of an amp is pretty different than the response that you get out of digital modeling stuff, which is what I'm working with. And the biggest takeaway from all this tone dialing stuff that I had is the way that John Petrucci sets up gain is you've got your cab, you've got your amp, and you stand in front of the setup and you turn up the gain until it starts going woo, doing feedback, and then you just turn it down a little bit, and that's going to get you right exactly where you need to be for the gank. So that's how you set gain. You can't really do that with digital modeler stuff. You're just going to have to try it. That's what I did last night. Next up, this was a big breakthrough for me. I think I got to ask JP about it directly, but in my review of the Majesty guitars, which there's 2 videos on that, by the way, if you haven't seen them, we talked about the boost knob, and I said I never used the boost knob. And JP clarified for me that this boost knob is not for overdriving the crunch sound. So I'm on my crunch sound right now, and what I'm going to do is boost knob is off. Now boost knob on. There's not a big difference in the sound. The only difference in the sound that I got was there's a little more that kind of stuff that stuck in between the accent of the notes. But other than that, it didn't really change things. That clean knob actually exists for boosting that boost knob actually exists for boosting the clean. So I'm going to switch to a clean sound and demo that for you. Here we go. Bing, Commander. And by the way, with the clean sound, there is a compressor. You could use a standard compressor or you could use a multi-band compressor. On this particular preset, which I'm going to play on magnetic pickups in the neck position. Let me make sure I'm not blowing your guys' ears out. It's a little hot. Sorry. Okay, so maybe about right there. Sorry if you're in earbuds. Okay, so this would boost off, boost on. Kind of puts it on edge of breakup, but that's not really what it's for. You can see that basically what it has to do with is what's called the headroom on the amp. So if you have a 50-watt amp and you're playing, and you're playing with a really high gain signal, there's kind of nowhere else left to go. But if you're playing on a 100-watt amp, there's a lot more what's called headroom. And to my understanding, which is limited on this topic, and you're playing clean sound, you're putting your initial sound coming into the amp is a lot lower in the first place because you're not using the gain in the amp. And so here it is with boost off. And here we are with boost on. So really big difference on cleans, not a big difference on distortion, and that's by design. All right, next up. So another really, really, really big thing that I learned is effects should go in the effects loop pretty much all the time. And the way you do that on a standard amp is you look on the back of the amp and it says effects send, and so a cable runs out. Let's say you have one pedal, and then it's going to come out of that pedal, and it's going to come into the FX return. And the reason you want to do it that way is because that's, whether you're using a modeling system or you're using a real system, is because the effects are going to sound different if you just go guitar to pedal to amp versus guitar, amp, pedal, and then your output source, which is cab, right? That's going to sound different. So what I did when I redid a lot of my Axe Effects stuff is I moved the cab block to the very end. So I've got sound in, gate, cab block, all of my effects that I want to use are in the middle basically, and then I have my cab block at the end, and then after the cab block I just use a parametric equalizer, cut that 150, cut that 10K, and yeah, that's how I'm doing my tones now, and I'm really happy with the results I'm getting. Great. Phaser goes in front, so I think I need to move mine around. Let's actually do it live. And let's see what we got here. Cool. So, M rocks. Okay. Okay, so I have a flange in here. I actually don't have a phaser, but let's just move the flange from the middle of the sound to the front of the sound. So here's our flange on. And let's just drag that block and put it right there. So here it is in front of the amp. That's funky, man. Yeah, I'm going to save that for sure. So there are some specific positions for certain pedals. Definitely play with it. I think John might use, I think it's a TC Electronic something. Great. Now let's talk about one of the JP's biggest, I don't want to call it a secret. It's not really a secret. There's other people who do it for sure. But big thing that I learned, and that is playing in stereo. So how does this work? If you think of an amp like a random number generator, and let's say, I strum, E right here on my guitar. Call that input signal from my guitar, call that a 1, okay? And every time you play out of an amp, the response that you're gonna get is slightly different. So in a lot of metal recordings, you do what's called double tracking. So you pan one all the way 100%, not 60, not 80, not 50, well, 50 be in the middle, right? But you go 100% to the left and 100% to the right, and you record everything twice. And the reason you do that is because those subtle differences in the guitar sound make it sound huge. It is awesome. I remember when I first did it, I was like, ah, right? Super cool. Now you can do this live without having to play your guitars twice or run a backing track. And the way you do that is you need a way to get from the guitar into 2 different amplifiers. And you don't use a splitter cable. I don't see why theoretically you couldn't do that though. But there's a little more to it than that. So there's 2 ways to do this. The first way to do it is to basically run a second amp in the effects send of the amp. So you would go guitar into amp number 1, out of effects send, and then into effects return on the second one. And then you would just wire up your cabs, and then you'd be getting 2 different signals. And on that setup, the tone shaping is done by amp number 1. Now the second way that you can do it is super cool. It's the way they run it now. And you can get something called a mimic pedal. And basically, you run your guitar into a pedal called the mimic, and there's all these little different controls. They explained how to set it up. I don't remember exactly how I turned the knobs. I've probably got it written down, but you can set to 2 voice or 4 voice, or I think 3 voice, and so it would basically sound like there's, you know, supposedly more guitars on stage. So you run cable into Mimic. Mimic goes into, I believe, the input both amps. Let me check my notes here, because I want to get this right for you guys. Method 2, TC Electronic, pitch, front of loop. Those notes are a little weird. Give me just 1 second. I think I drew it out somewhere. It's going to be towards the back of this little journal. Yep, I don't know where it is, but there's a way you can do it with the Mimic, and I'm going to leave it at that so I don't put out wrong information, because when I cover this in a video, then it'll be cool. Now, what I want to do for you guys real quick is when I'm feeding the guitar into my... nope, I'm running through the interface right now. So my fractal is running into my interface right now, which has a left and a right XLR input. And to do this, you need to be recording off of the USB input. And the thing is, I set all this stuff up last night. I was like, I'm going to make my sound stereo, and it's going to sound big and cool and awesome. And when I did that, I found, and even messing with the cab alignments in the fractal thing, it didn't really sound at all the same as double tracking. And in a way, it just sounded too similar between the left and the right side, to where I was like, this doesn't even matter. I don't know why someone would bother. Now with the delays, yeah, but for me, I'll tell you what I'm just going to keep doing. And by the way, many professional musicians, even when they do set up their digital-based sounds in stereo, when they go on tour, they have to actually go and sum them into mono or kind of rework them, because you end up kind of going out of a whole different sound setup. Cool. So running in stereo, big part of John's sound. Now we're back to the Aaron masterclasses, and this is a really, really, really cool thing that I'm about to show you, and it's which intervals, no pun intended, that you can play a flat 2 into a natural 2 on, and a sharp 4 into a 5 within major and minor scales. So let me switch sounds and I'll show this to you. All right, so we go band commander. All right, great. Cool. Let's get set up here. So basically what you can do is, let's say we have a minor scale here. There we go. So what you can do is, we're playing through the scale. Now, what you can do is, we played from A to B, but there's this note that's not used, which is B flat, A sharp. And so as you're playing through, try messing with that note as kind of a sort of leading tone. It's not really a leading tone, but using that to get into your beat. It just adds a new kind of tone to it. Now let's mess with it in A major. So with this one, you can do the natural 3 into, well, minor third and a major third. Nobody's ever done that before. That's like all blues. But again, you can use that kind of flat 2 thing. But another one that you can do is also the sharp 4. play with those two. Just remember, basically, in between scale degrees 1 and 2 and scale degrees 4 and 5, you can kind of add an extra note and get some cool stuff in there. So, I wrote it down here when I did all the music theory. It's the sharp 2 in major, and it's the sharp 1 and sharp 4 in natural minor. Cool. Next thing Aaron talked about was using string skipping specifically to create melodies. Sorry, I don't know his melodies. I think he had a song with the title like Moon in it or something. He played it and it was awesome. But instead of just thinking in kind of linear, up and down scales or, intervallic skips, 1 to 3 to 6, 5, 4, like that. Thinking string skipping and what you can do. And a lot of times, like, if you use like a chord shape, you can kind of that'll kind of help with your string skipping because you already know what notes are kind of related to each other. Great. Next up, and my voice is getting tired. Cool. Let's see here. One of the cool notes that Aaron made is he said, think of hybrid picking as a pre-positioned upstroke. And what he means by that, Aaron's not, I don't think he's as big on down picking, or sorry, not down picking, alternate picking as, say, John Petrucci or Jason Richardson, right? But basically, your hand is set up to go like this. It's not really set up to go like this, right? You kind of have to fight against it. So if you use the hybrid picking, hey, your other fingers are already there to, I don't practice hybrid picking much. But, so you can mess around with that and see what you get. Cool. Delay stuff, not a big deal. And let's see. This was a really cool trick, again from Aaron, and he said it's a Hollywood trick. It's really cool, and maybe I'll end up utilizing it in my writing at some point. But he said harmonize non-pentatonic melodies with pentatonic scales in high strings. So let me see if I can just do one of those live. We'll see if we can figure it out. And I'm going to switch to ambient. Right. So let's say we have, just so C sharp, D, and E, and A. And this patch is really hot for you guys again, so give me a second. 18, there we go. So what you might do is say our major pentatonic scale there would be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. So let's say we're starting on C sharp. So we could do. So the top line, while the bottom line is E, F sharp, A, C sharp. That sounds kind of nice on its own. But it definitely does sound like an inner line. So let's try those together again. Sorry, one sec. There we go. Something like that. So that's another compositional trick that you can play around with. Cool. Now let's talk about John Petrucci class day number 2. There's obviously a lot of notes. I think we're like 40 minutes into this thing. All right, and he talked about, this one was all about chords, and he said non-jazzy sounding extensions, right? So if I play, drop my pick, and an example I'll be very familiar with is, get a little bit of this. So if I play, those kind of have a sort of jazz kind of thing, right? But if I play, let's say like, or maybe like, I'm getting mixed up on 6 string. Something that all of that stuff that I just played, what it has in common is that there's, number one, like open strings as much as possible, wherever possible. And I did all the music theory and figured out the best keys for this based on the strings of the guitar. I'll tell you that in a second. Is it hair in my mouth? Okay. Nope. Joys of long hair. Open strings as much as possible, number one. And then the second thing is these dissonances. So if I play, say, there's an F sharp to a G, a half step. Or if I do, what's the other one? There's another half step right there. If I add that extra note, you can even do a fun, really fun chord shape like this. But always looking for those half steps and looking for those dissonant type intervals will help you sound like John Petrucci if that's what you want to do. Or just sound cool and non-jazzy. So the top keys for doing this kind of stuff in are going to be G major and E minor, and then D major and B minor. And the reason that I worked it all out that way is because let's say you wanted to use E major. Well, let's build something here. Let's say we wanted. Well, that doesn't sound very good. And the reason it doesn't sound good is because we got E, E, B, G natural, and then G sharp. And if we're playing an E, we're definitely going to want that that extra E. Now let's try to build something with like E, F, G, and so something like that. And how I built that just now is I was just like, okay, what's E and F sharp? Or you could do E, B, F sharp, and then that open G. And that's kind of what's used in the beginning to say, just look for those dissonances, and if you use G and E and D and B minor, then you'll be kind of working with the open strings of the guitar, and a lot more stuff is going to work for you. A would work pretty good as well. Great. Let's see. Another trick that John gave was using different bass notes. So I don't know the proper version of like the Count of Tuscany intro, but if we kind of play it. The only thing that's changing there is the G sharp, E, and F, which is the bottom note. And everything on top is the same. So I hope that kind of clarifies some of the John stuff. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Kind of already went over that in the pentatonics lesson. Guthrie gave some really cool tips, and I got to get out my ebow and I got to get out my slide. Well, I don't need to get out the slide, but I do need to get out the ebow because I'd like to demo that one. And one of the things that Guthrie was talking about, because if you don't know, he's working with Hans Zimmer right now, which is super cool. I really super need a drink. So Guthrie's working with Hans Zimmer, and there's all this slide stuff. If you're not a slide player, you don't have to go out there and become slide, virtuoso. But it's a cool tool to have in your arsenal. And he was talking about when you're playing slide, you don't, here's the fretboard and here's the string. You don't want to take the slide and press it all the way down. You just want it to be touching on the strings and gliding on top. And so he said specifically for this, you have to have higher action. I know probably a lot of us metal people are like, lowest action possible. And another note I got from Tim Henson even is he said, if your action is too low, the harmonics won't respond the same. So, I'm going to have to actually on my guitars bring the action up a little bit to kind of get a little bit of a different response. It's more musically desirable. And then the other trick that Guthrie gave was when using the ebow, if you don't have one, let me see if I can find it real quick. I think it's right over here. Hey, we have it. Okay, so here's an ebow. You can also just think about it. I just call it like a resonator. So what can happen is, let's say I'm playing C. Now, especially if I add a little bit of vibrato, what can happen is that note jumps up. I just want to make sure I'm not blowing your guys' ears out. Yeah. What can happen is, as you add a little bit of vibrato, that note can flip to an octave higher. So the tip that, it's not happening for me right now, and I'm not in the harmonic mode. Let's see what it sounds like in the harmonic mode. So the tip that Guthrie gave is he says if you've got to hold something with an ebow for 10 years, then put it at the so like let's say if I'm playing C. How do you say it? I'm so sorry. Why am I forgetting this tip? It's so important. We're almost to the end, guys. Don't worry. You'll have learned everything that I learned. Absolutely everything with nothing left out. Where is this at, man? I'm so sorry. I must have wrote it down in my digital notes, which I'm not going to get out right now. Oh, yeah. Nope. Hold the ebow 12 frets above the note you're playing. So let's give that a try right now. I'm going to switch to a distortion pad, so it's more fun that way. I'm not getting it to flip to the octave. But if you played with an EBow, you might have experienced that before. And that is how you can prevent it. Okay, cool. It looks like we got a couple questions. I've got a couple more. Cool note from Dave LaRue. I asked Mike Mangini, and I also asked Dave LaRue, who's John Petrucci's bass player, as well as Flying Colors and a couple other really cool projects. I asked Dave, I said, how do you keep track of all these, weird time signatures and things? Because there's some people apparently who can count in their heads while they play music, which is insane to me. And take it from a professional. He said, I kind of learned the stuff, and then I hear it as music. I don't really have to think about it. I don't think I got to ask Tosin about that. And when I asked Mike Mangini, he said, oh yeah, I can count 3 things in my head at once. And I was like, that's insane. Cool. A couple last notes from John Petrucci. Just like when we were talking about the dissonances that we can create in chords, he applies the same things to melodies, and it makes it sound really sweet. So if we take like Happy Song, for example, which I kind of only know a little bit. The dissonance right there is a major 7th to a 1. So let's play it again. And again, with the minor second and kind of interval. That song is really kind of 1-4-5 music theory based. It's an awesome song, but that's why it sounds so sweet and cool and happy, is because of all those little dissonances in there that resolve and make us go, right? Cool. All right, let's see. Also, we got, did you learn a lot from Guthrie? When I went to JPGU, I did not learn a lot from Guthrie. If you weren't here earlier in the live, I only asked him one question. And the question was, how do you keep track of all the scale modes? And he said, I just hear them. And I was like, that's a brilliant response, because when we talk about, what's a minor 7th? How do you hear that? Well, after you say, oh, well, it's, this song. There's a song back when I played string bass that started with that interval. It's called, like, something Maiden or something. And I was like, oh, whenever I hear that sound, that means it's this number, right? But now I just can, hear, whatever notes. That's a major 3rd. And it's actually an octave up and another 3rd up. So it's like a 15th or something. Whatever. And then the other things I learned from him were the EBow thing. And the other thing that he talked about, that Guthrie talked about, was he said if you're going to do hammer-ons, like, do it, like, as if you, like, picked a note. And I'm not Guthrie, but, And if you play with a high-gain sound, which his sound's probably not near as high-gain as mine. So yeah, hammer on your stuff pretty hard. Next question. Let's see what we got. Hey man, Lewis, you're coming in just at the end, but the replay will be up here soon, and you can hang out and watch that. If you have any questions, let me know. We're about to wrap up. All right. TA, yes. Basically what will happen with the EBow is, so there's two modes on it. If I'm holding it like this, and if you go towards me or like down, that's like the normal pitch mode. So if I play C, I'll just play C right here. And then I take the EBow and then I play that same C. It's the exact same pitch, right? But now if I flip that switch up or the other way, it's in the harmonic mode. And so now I'm going to play that C. And we'll go back again to the normal mode. So that's the difference between those. That's the difference between those two modes. I also got to hang out with Mike Mangini. We stay up till, there's like a whole group of us. We stay up till like 4 in the morning. Dude, Mike Mangini's such an awesome dude. I'm so glad I got to hang with him. Big inspiration. I actually showed him kind of one of like my demo songs, and he went, "Oh, dude, this is heavy," which it wasn't like quite surfer, but yeah, Mike Mangini's super cool dude. Hope I get to hang out with him again. He's great. So that's all I got for today. I'll give you guys like I got to get one of those. Yeah, the EBow, I've actually only used it on like one thing. It's kind of like you won't use it a lot, but when you have it, you'll be glad you have it with the EBow. So I'll hang out for like a minute or two more, and then I think I'm going to be playing some Halo 2 with my brother tonight. It's a game we played a long time ago. Let's see. I'm free now and the rest of the night. Yeah, Halo 2 is one of just my all-time favorites. I remember my older brother kind of played it, and then my younger brother and I kind of grew up like playing the PS2 and Lego Star Wars, especially. We 100%ed both of those games for the PS2. I think they're still in the closet. And yeah, we had so much fun. And then one day we pulled the Xbox out of the closet and we just started like playing Halo 2 obsessively. And we had to get new controllers because like I don't know, we couldn't find them or like they didn't work or something. And I got a transparent blue one and he got a transparent green one. And I remember like the height of all this was we were literally like riding like our bikes like from a friend's house like back home or something, and we found these massive, like, I don't want to say disgusting as in they were rotten, but they were just very dusty and super old. But we found these massive armchairs, and I don't know which parent we convinced to bring them home, probably my dad, but we had these massive armchairs, and we were in like 5th grade and 3rd grade at the time, and we'd sit in those big chairs and play video games. It was a good time. All right, cool. Let's see what we got. Yeah. Question is, all right. Lewis says, thank you. Thank you, Lewis, for watching. Hope you're applying and learning some cool stuff. I'm really grateful to, have the teachers I do, and that's part of why I do this. Do I play drums at all? Yeah, I have an electronic drum set over there. You probably saw it in the last thing. I can play like some odd meter stuff. I could get by on drums, probably. I can't really count in my head while I play, but I could sit down and learn a song if I like really needed to. Drums is a really nice skill to have because a lot of times like you'll see little Instagram meme clips or whatever, or YouTube shorts, because I'm not really messing with Instagram these days, where like a drummer will like laugh at a drum part that a guitar player wrote because the changes are just ridiculous for drums, or they're playing 3 notes at once, and it's like, well, that's not really how drums works. So it's really great to have and to kind of get familiar with, so that if you're putting stuff in MIDI, then you can kind of sit down there and like feel it out. And the way I really honestly like got started on drums was, I would just drum in my car, and I'd do the, your accelerator pedals on your right foot. So I would just do the kick pedal with my left foot. And, then my younger brother graciously gave me that electronic drum set because he likes real drums, and the response on those is completely different than a real drum set. So that's how I ended up with it, which I'm, again, super grateful to have it, because it's just let me go through basics. But yeah, I do a little bit of drums. Cool. Obviously, I'm a big computer nerd. Going back to gaming, this is like my whole custom water-cooled rig. It's awesome. The fans don't even run. They're running right now because we're obviously doing some video encoding. And now I live in Arizona, and the ambient temperature is higher than the last place I lived. So the fans tend to cut on a little bit, but the switch on point is at like, I think I set it to like 28 or 30%. I use a software called Fan Control. And basically what I'll do is I'll just turn the fans off, and then I'll just go tick, 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 tick until they turn on. And then I'll go like 1 or 2% above that, because with fans, like if you've ever switched a fan on, you'll notice that it goes from off to its highest setting, and then to its second lowest, and then its lowest setting. And the reason that fans do that is because the way that they work is that in order to get them moving, they have to have a lot higher, drop my pick, they have to have a lot higher electrical impulse to get them moving than to keep them moving. And so when you switch on a fan, it has to have that big electrical, shock basically to get it going, and then you can turn it down to the lower speeds. So that's why whenever I dial in my fans, I go like 2% above, because it just kind of puts them over that threshold. And, obviously like your computer's going to shut down if it's overheating, but yeah, I love custom computers. This thing is super custom. The whole thing is actually vinyl wrapped inside and outside with Avery Dennison metallic gray something. I forget the exact name. And inside with 3M carbon fiber, which is a material I've been working with for a long time and love it. It's super cool. All right, let's see. Also, what am I using right now? You love my setup. Thanks, man. The setup's pretty good. I just get what I need, and I'm really happy with what I have and grateful for it. And whenever people come over, if they want to try something, I absolutely let them try it. It's super fun. I love seeing the joy on people's faces when I get to share these great things that I've been blessed with. My setup is here. I gotta put the guitar down, but I'll show it to you. Okay, cool. So the setup is obviously the computer. We've got HS5 for the speaker monitors, and then below the desk is the Yamaha HS8, which is the matching subwoofer. I've not learned how to set the volume yet. I'll go over that with my teacher soon. Those are running off of a Scarlett Focusrite, which is a completely fine interface for like beginners. I don't know, maybe like way down the line I'll get something really fancy, but I'd love to get something with like 4 inputs. And the reason I want 4 is so I could do 2 out left and right different channels, so one for clean, one for the processed sound effect, because if you have to reamp and you've hard coded your delays and you've hard coded all this stuff, then you would need to re-record all your guitars. And so if I can run both the clean and that thing, because right now I'm running the mic and I'm running the fractal into that, and the way that Windows audio works is you can't really have multiple sound sources going at a time. And yeah, you can use Voice Meter Banana, but the problem I found with Voice Meter Banana or VBAN is that it caused latency, even if you were using ASIO, and it screws up everything when it comes to like low latency audio recording. So yeah, that's the system though. Whatever computer parts I got in there, I wouldn't stress too much about it. I think I got a 7600K. And yeah, it's doing just fine. I mean, unless you're loading up on plugins, then you're probably going to be fine. I think people stress way too hard about like, I got to have 64 gigabytes of RAM and, super SSDs and all that. It's like, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. People have been recording on hard drives for a long time. And then let's talk about like the actual, the rest of the setup. So I'm going to turn the camera and then we'll kind of call this soon, because I gotta look at where the camera's pointed and all that. All right. Hey, that's my face. So, I'm gonna get out of the way here. All right, so we have the fractal FM3, the fractal, and I need to redo my effects loop, by the way. So ignore this, but what is currently set up is the guitar comes in on the far right side of that, and it goes directly into the volume pedal first, and then the red pedal on the top there is a Digitech drop, and the volume pedal, or no, it goes into Digitech drop first, and then to the volume pedal, and then I think the wah. And the reason I have that order is it needs to go to the Digitech drop first, because if you're gonna, if you're gonna do any kind of transposition, then and you have a low volume, then you might not feed enough volume into the transposition pedal before you're affecting it like that. And then it goes into the wah next, because generally I'm not going to be using, I don't think anybody has ever used a wah and a volume pedal at the same time. But the wah needs to be on the front end of the sound. So then it runs into the fractal, and I need to move the volume pedal right now. So I've got a fractal FM3 on the left and then a fractal FC6 on the right. This setup is massive. It's very heavy, and I'm thinking about downsizing it. There's a thing that'll let you add just kind of like 2 switches or on the FM3, and I'm thinking about running that because I tried getting the case for this. It's on a Temple board, and the problem with it is that the Digitech drop, the red pedal over there, sticks up vertically too much, and I tried removing it, but it just doesn't work, and I want it right there. So I might kind of redo all of it, because it's just massive to carry around. Usually when I like travel or like, and I'm just playing in like a little rehearsal or something, I'll literally just pull off the FM3 and maybe the wah, and that's it, because that's most of what I need. So then out of the back of that, we go from FM3 over to computer via XLR, and that output 1 is split, and the reason it's split is because it goes to the camera. So whenever I'm recording for my YouTube videos, I am running microphone, which is this doodad right here, which is a Sennheiser thing. Funny story about this. I'll tell you guys in a minute, but this is a Sennheiser EW100. It's a very nice lav. So that runs it directly into the camera. Oh, let's turn around to the camera setup. Aha. So the camera's over there. Sorry, this is like so ghetto, but we're hanging out. So there's a splitter on that, and so I run the guitar directly into the camera as well as the mics, and then I sync it back up later. Now, monitoring and amp-wise, whenever I'm like dialing a sound, I will turn on monitor on my fractal interface, and I will listen to the sound out of my stereo monitors, because those are like, supposedly, more accurate, right? So I'll dial sounds there, but the sound is actually playing out of this headrush unit, and I'll explain this guy in a second. The sound is actually playing out of the headrush unit, which is an FR unit, or full range, full response, which I found the soundscape from it is very weird. I feel like it's super mid-heavy, and I have the contour on, and the thing is it sounds loud and it's good, and I dialed my sounds on the HS5, so whatever. And then I run it into Reaper. Okay, great. I think that covers kind of the whole setup thing. Next question is, hello, I just ran into 2 of your videos. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna move the camera back for you guys. Great. Hi. Hi, I just ran into 2 of your videos, and you're literally a few minutes ago, and I've got to say, you're a gem of information. Thank you for all these tips. You're super welcome. Wait till we get to the practice video. I hired a neuroscientist to interview to tell me how to practice better. It's pretty fun. And then, nice dude, your setup is sick. Yeah, my setup is what I need, and it'll grow and change over the years, and I hope you get what you need, and you can make all the sounds in the world you want. So it's been fun hanging out with you guys. Looks like there's no more questions. I'm going to call it and have fun. Thanks for chilling with me with the funny camera ghetto setup. We'll work out the setup over time, and we'll see where we get to, because this room that all this stuff is set up in is actually very small and annoying. So 99 hiccups. I'm going to guess you meant to type "oh word" and not "oh worm." I've never heard anyone say "worm, dude." Cool, worm. I think he meant word, which is funny. Cool. Oh, I'll tell you guys the funny story about this little mic real quick. So I used to work for somebody, and I used to film videos for them. And when we were filming videos, I used to have to take a little Zoom recorder and like press the button, and then I had to sync it up to the camera later. And so we just leave the Zoom recorder running, and then we'd have the camera, and then matching it all up later was a nightmare. It slowed my video editing process down tremendously. So I said, hey, can we please get one of these? Because then my video production can be a lot faster. And then it was. And I think this unit cost and the receiver cost about like $400 at the time. And then I ended up, moving on from that particular job. And, this person would still need some help every once in a while. And so they called me up one day and they said, hey, can you help me set up this thing? And it was like a piece of technology. I'll leave it at that. It was a whiteboard. And I was over there for like 3 hours, and I couldn't get the thing set up. It was just so wonky. And, so he said, well, we get to the end of the day, and he goes, well, how much do I owe you? And I said, what if you just gave me the mic? I'd be really happy with the mic. Because I think I quoted him something kind of BS, a little bit high, like $300 or, something like that. And he's like, I don't want to pay you $300. I was like, well, what if I could just have the mic? And I don't think he remembers how much he bought the mic for, which was like around $400 because I picked it out. And he was like, okay, sure. So he gave me the mic, and I still have the mic and love the mic. And it was something like that. And what's hilarious about getting the microphone is that I stopped doing video work for people. And a couple months later, he called me up. He's like, man, I really need someone to do video work for me. There's all these guys who I'm finding, but they just don't have the gear. And it was so funny because I had the camera and I had the mic. So that's how I got the mic. That's how I got the drum set, because my brother gave it to me. So grateful. And relationships can get you a lot of really cool things. So be nice to people, show up, do your best, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.